In the heart of a busy city where everyone rushes past each other without a second glance, one small act of kindness sets off a ripple that will change lives forever. When Maria's wheelchair breaks down on a crowded sidewalk, hope fades fast, until a quiet, grease-stained mechanic named Leo steps in. With calloused hands and a heavy heart, he offers to fix it for free. But what seems like a simple repair is really the beginning of something much greater. Leo, still grieving the loss of his daughter who once depended on a wheelchair, sees more than just a broken device. He sees a chance to honor her memory. Maria, deeply moved, promises to repay the gesture, and she does, in a way Leo never imagined. What follows is a powerful chain of giving, where compassion fuels community, and gratitude transforms into a mission. This isn't just a story about a mechanic and a wheelchair. It's about second chances, unspoken grief, and the extraordinary things that happen when we lead with kindness. Stay with us, because what Maria brings back to Leo isn't just thanks. It's a legacy reborn. You won't believe how this simple repair turns into something that touches an entire neighborhood. The city was already alive with noise by the time Maria rolled out of her small apartment. Car horns echoed through the air, mingling with the shouts of street vendors setting up their booths. The sun, still yawning above the skyline, cast long shadows across the cracked sidewalks. For most people, it was just another Tuesday, but for Maria, it felt like a battlefield she had to cross on wheels. She had overslept again, her alarm had failed again, and the job interview she had scraped together enough courage to attend was on the other side of town. A 2-hour bus ride if all the transfers went right. She hadn't eaten breakfast, hadn't checked her phone, she just needed to go. But just 3 blocks into her journey, her wheelchair began to stutter. A strange squeal cut through the morning air as one of the wheels trembled beneath her. She froze, terrified. She tried to roll forward again. This time, the left wheel jammed completely. Her body lurched to the side, and she barely caught herself before tipping over. "No, no, no," she muttered, panic creeping into her voice. She was stuck on the edge of a narrow sidewalk next to a bakery just opening its doors. The sidewalk sloped sharply, and her stuck wheel made balancing feel like teetering on a cliff. Pedestrians swerved around her. Some gave her a glance, most didn't. No one stopped. Maria bit her lip and tried again to free the wheel, wincing at the sharp metallic grind it made. A few people crossed the street to avoid her. One man briefly slowed down, looked at her, then walked on. Another woman with a child gave her a sympathetic smile but kept moving. She blinked back tears. She didn't cry easily, but the weight of it all, being late, being ignored, being stuck, hit her hard. Then a voice behind her. "Need a hand?" She looked up quickly. A man stood there in a navy jumpsuit with streaks of grease along the sleeves. His face was weathered and his hands were rough, but his eyes were kind. He looked to be in his late 50s, with short-cropped gray hair and the tired look of someone who'd seen a lot. Maria hesitated. I think the wheel is jammed." He crouched down without another word and inspected the wheelchair's undercarriage, his brow furrowing as he gently wiggled the stuck wheel. "You're lucky it didn't fall off," he said. "The axle's almost sheared. One hard bump and this thing would have tossed you sideways." Maria gave a nervous laugh. "Well, that explains the death wobble." He smiled faintly and stood. "I've got a shop just there," he said, pointing a few buildings down the street. A modest garage with a faded sign that read Leo's Auto and Repair. "Not exactly a wheelchair specialist, but metal's metal. I can take a look if you've got the time." Maria blinked. She didn't have much choice. I don't I don't really have any money, she said cautiously, unsure how to read him. He waved a hand. Don't worry about that. Let's just get you rolling again. Carefully, he unlocked the brakes and gently tilted the chair back onto its rear wheels. Okay to push? He asked. Maria nodded, still a bit stunned. Together they made their way down the sidewalk. People still passed without noticing, but Maria didn't care anymore. For the first time that morning, someone had seen her, really seen her, and stepped in. As they approached the garage, Maria glanced at the old tools hanging neatly along the wall and the smell of motor oil wafting from inside. The place had character. So did Leo. He rolled her gently inside and gestured toward a dusty waiting chair in the corner. Have a seat, I'll get some tools. She transferred cautiously, grateful for the stable surface beneath her. Her hands were still shaking. Thank you, she said, her voice quieter now. Leo turned and gave a nod, already halfway under her wheelchair, poking at bolts and joints with the ease of a man who'd done this kind of work his whole life. Maria watched in silence, not knowing yet that this chance meeting, this rough start, would become one of the most beautiful turns in her journey. The garage was a relic of a different time. Grease-streaked windows let in shafts of dust-filled light, revealing old posters peeling at the corners and well-worn tools hanging in a precise line across pegboard walls. In the center of it all stood Leo, hunched over the base of Maria's wheelchair like it was a vintage sports car from his glory days. Maria sat quietly in the corner, trying to settle her nerves. She could hear the rhythmic sound of a wrench clicking and Leo muttering to himself occasionally. Each movement was measured, careful, not rushed. It reminded her of her grandfather fixing watches when she was a child. There was something comforting about it. After a few minutes, Leo looked up. You've been riding this thing hard, he said with a faint grin. Maria chuckled. City sidewalks aren't very forgiving. Neither is the bus ramp. He nodded. It shows. This axle's bent and your bearings are shot on the left side. You're lucky it held up as long as it did. Can it be fixed? She asked, unable to hide the worry in her voice. Oh yeah, just needs a little love and some parts I've got lying around. He walked over to a corner of the shop, opened a wooden cabinet, and pulled out a container labeled Miss Bearings. Digging through it, he pulled out a couple and held them to the light. You fix a lot of wheelchairs? She asked, half joking. Leo paused. Not really, he said, his tone softening, but I used to. My daughter Emily used one. Built her ramps, fixed her chair every time it broke down, learned quick that waiting on repairs meant missing life. Maria glanced at the photo on the wall behind him. A smiling girl with chestnut hair and bright eyes sat in a wheelchair, throwing her arms up at the camera as if she were flying. The picture was slightly faded, but clearly cherished. She looks like she was full of joy, Maria said gently. Leo smiled, not looking up. She was. Brightest light I ever knew. A quiet moment passed, heavy with emotion. She'd be around your age now, he added. Lost her in a car accident about 7 years ago. Driver wasn't paying attention. I'm so sorry, Maria whispered. Leo nodded as if to say thanks, but didn't speak. Instead, he focused on the chair, tightening bolts and replacing the damaged axle with one he had in a drawer. Maria watched him, feeling an odd mix of sorrow and gratitude. She hadn't expected her broken wheelchair to lead her into someone's personal history. And yet here she was, connected by grief, by struggle, by wheels and silence. As Leo continued working, she glanced at her phone. The job interview was long gone. No messages, no missed calls, just a battery percentage that was slowly draining. She sighed, pushing the thought away. Today had taken an unexpected turn. Maybe missing that interview wasn't the disaster she thought it was. Leo looked up. Shouldn't take much longer. I'll clean up the wheels, check your brakes too. Maria smiled. Take your time. I'm just glad someone stopped. Leo gave her a curious look. People don't help you much, do they? She shook her head. Most look the other way. They see the chair before they see me. Well, he said, setting down his tools, that's their loss. By the time Leo had finished, the sun was rising higher and casting sharper shadows through the garage windows. He stepped back from the wheelchair, hands on hips, and gave it a small push. It rolled smoothly, the wheels perfectly aligned and balanced. There we go, he said, satisfied. You should be good to go now. Maria stood slowly, testing the feel of the wheels under her. She gave it a few rolls back and forth, and then turned a full circle. It felt like gliding. This is amazing, she said, genuinely surprised. It feels brand new. Leo wiped his hands on a rag and shrugged. Just needed a little attention. She looked at him, hesitating. So, how much do I owe you? Leo leaned against his workbench, crossing his arms. Nothing. Maria blinked. Nothing? You did a full repair. You replaced parts. You should at least let me... He held up a hand. I told you, don't worry about it. Consider it a good deed. Maybe one day you'll pass it on. She was speechless for a moment. But why? Leo looked at her with the faintest smile. Because I know what it means to be stuck, to feel invisible. And because if Emily were still around, I'd hope someone would do the same for her. Maria's eyes welled with tears. She looked down, struggling to keep her voice steady. Thank you, she said. You don't know what this means. He gave a simple nod, almost embarrassed. Just keep moving forward, all right? She nodded, gripping the wheelchair handles tighter. I will, I promise. As she rolled out of the garage, the sounds of the city greeted her again. But this time they didn't seem so loud or uncaring. She looked back once, catching a glimpse of Leo watching her go from behind the glass. He raised a hand in farewell. Maria smiled. She had left home this morning defeated. Now she rolled away not just repaired, but seen, remembered, and inspired. After Maria left, Leo stood at the threshold of his garage for a while, arms crossed, staring down the street as she disappeared into the city. He didn't usually talk about Emily, not even to his old friends at the diner he visited every Sunday. But something about Maria had loosened that tight, locked door inside him. Maybe it was the determined look in her eyes, the way she tried not to ask for help. Emily had been the same. He returned to the shop and wheeled the now empty wheelchair stand back into the corner. Tools still lay scattered across the floor, but Leo didn't rush to clean them up. Instead, he walked over to the photo of Emily and gently dusted the frame. You'd like her, he said aloud. His shop had changed over the years. Where once there were bustling cars, now there were only a few. He didn't advertise. Most customers were regulars or walk-ins like Maria. The truth was, the place didn't make much money anymore, but Leo kept it open, not just for the repairs, but for the memories. Fixing that wheelchair had stirred something inside him, a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in a long time. For once, his work felt personal again, meaningful. He sat at his bench and reached for a worn leather notebook. Inside were sketches, old ones, of modified chairs he had designed for Emily. He flipped through them slowly, stopping at one that showed a streamlined model with shock absorbers and a custom seat. Maybe it's time to do something with these, he murmured. Leo wasn't sure what would come next, But for the first time in years, he felt like there could be a next step, beyond repairs, beyond grief. Maria had come in needing help. She had no idea how much she'd just given in return. Maria sat in the dusty corner of the garage, her eyes wandering across the array of mechanical parts, old signs, and a few personal mementos that decorated Leo's workspace. The smell of oil, metal, and rubber filled the air, but it wasn't unpleasant, just real. It smelled like work, like effort, like a place where things were put back together. She glanced again at the photo of the girl on the wall, Emily. There was something hauntingly familiar in her expression, joy mixed with a spark of determination. Maria wondered what kind of life she had led, and what kind of father Leo must have been to build ramps and sketch wheelchair designs by hand. Leo was back under her chair, tinkering with the brake system. His movements were patient but precise, as if he were performing surgery. Maria checked her phone, still no signal. The job interview she had been racing toward that morning was long gone. She hadn't even gotten a chance to call and explain. Her chest tightened with the thought she'd needed that job. Rent was due in less than 2 weeks. Food was already running low. But strangely, as she sat there watching Leo work, she didn't feel panic. Not anymore, just a quiet sense of surrender. "So," she finally said, breaking the silence, "how long have you had this shop?" Leo's voice came from below. "About 26 years. Took over from my uncle when he retired. Back then it was mostly engine rebuilds and carburetor swaps. Now, it's whatever rolls through the door." Maria smiled. "Including wheelchairs." He chuckled. "Including wheelchairs." Another pause. Then she asked the question that had been on her mind since he mentioned his daughter. What was Emily like? Leo didn't respond right away. He emerged from under the chair, wiping his hands on a rag. He sat on the nearby stool and looked at the photo. She was stubborn, bright, loved animals, hated being treated like she was fragile. He smiled. She was born with spina bifida. Doctors said she might not walk at all. We proved them wrong. Well, she did. Maria listened, her chest tightening again, but this time for a different reason. "I used to build her ramps out of scrap wood from the yard, modify her chair every 6 months as she grew. I made it faster, stronger, put padded tires on it once so she could race around the yard. She thought she was in a Formula One car." "Sounds like she had a good life," Maria said softly. Leo nodded, his smile fading. "She did, for a while, until that one moment you never see coming." A thick silence settled in. Maria didn't push. She just sat, honoring the space he'd opened to her. Then Leo straightened. "You remind me of her," he said, standing up and heading back to the bench. "Same fire, same independent streak." Maria blinked, touched by the comparison. She didn't know what to say, so she just smiled and nodded. Sometimes waiting wasn't just about filling time. Sometimes it was about bearing witness. In that garage, surrounded by rusted parts and old dreams, Maria wasn't just waiting for a chair to be fixed. She was being seen. And so was Leo. When Leo finally gave the all clear, Maria wheeled herself forward slowly, testing the smoothness of the motion. The difference was immediate. The grind and wobble were gone. The chair moved as if it had been designed for a dance floor. She looked at Leo in disbelief. "This is amazing." He nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I reinforced the frame and swapped out your axle. Cleaned your bearings too, so it should roll smoother. You'll still need a new cushion eventually, but this should hold you for a long while." She circled the garage a few times, laughing. "You're a miracle worker." "I'm just a guy with tools and time," he replied, modest. Maria rolled to a stop and looked at him seriously. Okay, be honest. How much do I owe you for all of this? Leo folded his arms. Nothing. Leo. He held up a hand. I mean it. No charge. Let's just say I owed the universe one. Maria shook her head, overwhelmed. But you used real parts. This had to take hours. He shrugged. What good are parts if they sit on a shelf? The words hit her harder than expected. She had been sitting on the metaphorical shelf for months, waiting, hoping, afraid to ask for help. And now someone had not only seen her, but had chosen to lift her. Thank you, she said again, her voice cracking. Really, you have no idea how much this means. Leo smiled gently. I think I do. She hesitated. Can I at least take your number? I want to come back. I want to find a way to repay you. He reached for a business card and handed it over. No rush. Just do something good for someone else someday. That's enough payment. Maria looked at the card. Leo's Auto and Repair. Honest work, fair hands. Below it, a faded quote read, Kindness costs nothing, but means everything. She held it like a promise. As she left the garage, rolling into the sunlight with ease and freedom, she felt like something inside her had been repaired too. Maria didn't go straight home. She found herself wandering the city streets with a sense of renewed purpose, every spin of her wheels a reminder of Leo's gift. The city looked different now, less harsh, more open. Every person she passed felt like a potential story, a potential kindness waiting to unfold. Later that night, she sat in her tiny apartment, Leo's card still in her hand. She placed it on her desk beside her laptop and opened a new document. Title, Legacy of the Wheel. It wasn't much, just a placeholder for an idea. She didn't know what it would become yet, but she knew it had to start now. Over the next few weeks, Maria applied to more jobs. She didn't get them all, but she got better at interviews. She talked about resilience, about adaptation, about navigating a world built for others. And then, finally, an offer came in. A nonprofit working on accessibility advocacy. They needed someone who could speak from experience, someone who understood the system from the inside. They wanted her. She started 2 weeks later. On her first paycheck, she didn't buy new clothes or splurge on takeout. Instead, she started researching wheelchair maintenance kits, fundraising platforms, and local communities in need. She called Leo and left a message. You helped me roll forward. Now I'm going to keep that promise. Leo never called back. He didn't have to. Maria was already moving. Maria's new job wasn't glamorous. The office was small, the budget tight, and the pace relentless. But it was real. Every morning she wheeled herself into that building with a smile, knowing that the work she was doing had purpose. The nonprofit, Access Forward, worked to bridge the gap between people with disabilities and the support systems that too often failed them. They lobbied for accessible transit, distributed refurbished mobility aids, and helped individuals advocate for better infrastructure in their neighborhoods. And now they had someone on their team who had lived that reality, Maria. From her first staff meeting, Maria felt the difference. She wasn't just another employee ticking boxes. Her insights, her lived experience became a valuable lens for the organization's projects. She shared stories of sidewalk battles and bus ramp failures, and slowly, her colleagues began to reshape how they approached their campaigns. But even as Maria grew into her new role, she never forgot the garage. On weekends, she'd visit local parks and libraries, striking up conversations with people in chairs, scooters, and walkers. She kept Leo's business card tucked into her wallet, just in case she ran into someone in need of an honest repair. One Saturday, she found a teen whose wheelchair wheels had frayed so badly they no longer gripped the ground. Maria made a few calls, tapped a few local suppliers, and within 48 hours, the teen was back to rolling freely. It wasn't just about being helpful, it was about echoing Leo's gesture, creating a loop of kindness that never broke. Weeks turned into months. One afternoon, while sorting through boxes in the nonprofit's dusty storage closet, Maria came across several unused grant vouchers. They were earmarked for community partnerships. Most had been forgotten or unclaimed. An idea sparked. She called her manager. What if we use this to help small businesses that support accessibility, people like independent mechanics or community repair hubs? The answer, write up a proposal. So she did. In it, she named the pilot project the Emily Lift Initiative. She didn't ask Leo for permission to use the name. She just knew it was right. 3 weeks later, the project was approved. Funds would be used to install a wheelchair lift in a chosen community partner's location, someone who had already shown dedication to accessible service. Maria didn't have to think long about who to nominate. It was a gray Thursday morning when Leo heard the rumble of a van outside his shop. He glanced up from the carburetor he was adjusting and saw a group of people climbing out. 2 men in matching polos, 1 woman in a blazer, and behind them, unmistakable in her confidence, Maria. Leo wiped his hands, puzzled but curious, and walked to the garage entrance. Well, if it isn't my best customer. Maria laughed. I hope you don't mind the surprise. Leo shook his head slowly. What's going on here? Maria turned and waved the others forward. Leo, I'd like you to meet the team from Access Forward. And these gentlemen here are with Lift One Mobility Systems. He raised a brow. Lift Systems? That's right, she said. Today we're installing a fully automated wheelchair lift right here in your garage. Leo stared at her, stunned. You're serious? Dead serious, she said. You said this shop helped people who roll through the door. Now it literally can. No more awkward bumps, no more heavy lifting, full access for everyone. The workers were already unpacking tools and bolts, measuring the entrance and placing anchors. Leo stepped aside, still too shocked to speak. Maria approached him gently and handed him a small plaque. It read, In honor of Emily, where every roll forward begins. Leo's eyes welled with tears. He touched the edge of the plaque reverently, running his fingers over his daughter's name. I don't know what to say, he whispered. You don't have to, Maria said. You already said it when you fixed my chair and asked for nothing in return. By mid-afternoon, the lift was fully installed. Leo tested it by wheeling an old scooter chassis onto the platform and watching it rise smoothly to the shop floor. A quiet smile played on his face. That evening they held a small ribbon cutting. A few neighbors showed up, a woman with a walker, a young boy in a pediatric chair, even a retired vet in a motorized scooter, all clapped as Maria introduced Leo as their neighborhood hero. Leo stood awkwardly by the lift, plaque in hand, shaking his head in disbelief. You didn't just come back to say thank you, he told Maria, as the crowd dispersed. You brought the whole world with you. She smiled. That was the plan. Over the next few weeks, Leo's shop underwent a quiet transformation. Word about the lift and Leo's story spread quickly. Local news outlets picked it up. The article headline read, Mechanics' act of kindness inspires community accessibility movement. His shop, once a slow trickle of regulars, now had new visitors every day, some in need of help, others just wanting to thank him. One morning, a woman in her 60s arrived in a beat-up motorized chair. Her voice trembled as she told Leo about a time she had been turned away from a tire shop because of her disability. Leo didn't just fix her wheel bearings. He offered her coffee, listened to her story, and told her she was welcome anytime. Maria stopped by regularly, sometimes just to talk, other times with small donations or repair materials. She brought interns from her nonprofit to learn hands-on wheelchair maintenance, and Leo, once hesitant to teach anyone again, found himself enjoying the process. "I never thought I'd be doing this," he admitted one afternoon. "Doing what?" Maria asked. "Turning grief into something useful." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't just fix my chair, Leo. You gave me movement, dignity, and direction. This lift, this shop, it's more than thanks. It's the beginning." And for the first time in years, Leo believed that. The transformation of Leo's garage into a hub for accessibility didn't happen overnight, but it grew with surprising speed. After the local news story aired, more than just customers showed up at his door. Small businesses, city council members, and even retired engineers dropped by, offering tools, materials, or just their hands. One day it was a used wheelchair ramp from a closed-down school. Next, a young volunteer brought boxes of latex gloves, zip ties, and sanitizer wipes. Maria watched the ripple effect unfold with quiet awe. One Saturday morning, Leo arrived to find a stack of handwritten letters waiting at his garage door. They came from students at a local high school's Disability Awareness Club. One message stood out. "Thank you for being the kind of adult we all wish we had around. You reminded me that small acts can change everything." He taped that letter to his toolbox. Before long, Leo's Auto and Repair had a side program, Fix It Forward. Every first Saturday of the month, Leo and his team of volunteers offered free basic mobility device repairs, no questions asked. Scooters, canes, walkers, strollers for special needs children, all were welcome. Maria helped manage logistics, growing the partnership between the nonprofit and the garage. Flyers were distributed at clinics, shelters, and community centers. One time, a whole busload of senior home residents rolled in, and Leo grinned like a proud host at a block party. What struck him most was the sense of belonging that bloomed in the air. He wasn't just helping people, he was building something bigger than himself. And Emily's photo stayed right there on the wall, smiling down on it all. Leo had spent years believing his purpose ended the day Emily did. He worked out of habit, lived out of rhythm. Each sunrise was just another lap around the same track. But Maria's wheelchair, broken and desperate on that sidewalk, had cracked open the rusted gates around his heart. Now he woke up with plans. One Sunday morning he found himself sketching a blueprint for a modular tray that could attach to almost any wheelchair. Lightweight, removable, adjustable. He remembered how Emily used to balance her art pad on her knees, and how many times it had slipped or fallen. He brought the sketch to Maria. "This something your team could help with?" Her eyes lit up. "Are you kidding? We could prototype it, test it, and even crowdfund it." Before the month was over, Leo was hosting design workshops with local engineers and students. The prototype, nicknamed the Sidekick, was tested by a dozen users. With minor tweaks and community input, it soon became a favorite. But more than the design, It was the collaboration that revived Leo's spirit. He wasn't working alone anymore. He was surrounded by people who believed in the mission, in the impact of practical kindness, and in his role at the center of it all. His tools had found new meaning. His garage had become a second home to strangers who left as friends. And in the quiet hours after a busy repair day, Leo would sit with a cup of coffee and whisper to Emily's photo, "We did good today, kid." The sun beamed over the community park as folding chairs were set up in neat rows. Balloons in soft blue and silver framed a modest stage where a banner read, "Access Forward Annual Celebration." Maria, now an outreach director and respected voice in the accessibility community, stood behind the microphone. The crowd gathered wasn't massive, but it was full of those who mattered. Families, volunteers, local officials, and a few curious newcomers. In the front row, Leo sat quietly, wearing a freshly ironed work shirt and holding the plaque Maria had given him. His hands were still stained from the morning's repairs, and he wouldn't have it any other way. When Maria began speaking, the crowd hushed. "Good afternoon, everyone," she said, her voice steady. "Today we celebrate a year of impact, a year of movement, a year of transformation, both in our cities and in our hearts." She paused, scanning the audience, then her eyes found Leo's. "A year ago I was stuck on a sidewalk. My wheelchair was broken and so was my spirit. One man, one act of generosity changed that. He didn't just fix my chair, he fixed my direction." She turned toward Leo, motioning him to stand. "This man is the reason I'm standing here today. Leo, you taught us all that kindness isn't just a feeling, it's a tool, one that can be passed from hand to hand, wheel to wheel, life to life." The crowd erupted into applause. Leo, eyes damp but smiling, rose slowly and nodded. He didn't speak much at events, but his expression said everything. After the ceremony, a boy no older than 12 approached him with a cracked walker. "My dad says you're the guy who can fix anything." Leo crouched, gently taking the walker. "Let's take a look." As he adjusted the rubber grips and tightened the frame, the boy asked, "Was that your daughter on the stage picture?" "No," Leo said softly, "but she's the reason I help people like your family." The boy grinned. "She'd be proud of you." Leo didn't reply. He just smiled wider. Later that evening, Maria and Leo walked side by side through the park. The stars had begun to peek through the sky. "Do you ever think we'd end up here?" Maria asked. Leo chuckled. "Not in a million years." She looked ahead, watching the flicker of street lamps light the way. "You fixed a chair, I started a program, we inspired a neighborhood, all because one day you said, 'Don't worry about it.'" Leo nodded. Funny how the smallest turns can lead you exactly where you're supposed to be. And in that moment, with wheels spinning, laughter rising from the field behind them, and a community forever changed, they both knew the story had come full circle. Not with an end, but with momentum.